Greetings. Welcome to our show, Ghosts R N.E.A.R, where we discuss various aspects of the paranormal and paranormal research. I am your host, Keith Johnson, the founder of N.E.A.R, New England Anomalies Research. With me is my co-host and co-founder of N.E.A.R, Sandra Johnson.
Good evening.
And happy Halloween.
And happy Halloween. It's coming right up.
Yes, yep, it is that season. And this evening, we have a very special guest, a good friend of ours who does ghostly photography, and that is the title of her book. And please join me in welcoming Julie Griffin.
Thank you, Keith.
Finally
Thank
have you on, Julie.
Thank you.
Well, we're delighted to have you here, and it's quite a fascinating topic to talk about ghostly photographs and photography of spirits, something that a lot of people don't have a lot of luck with, and I think it takes a certain amount of talent and certainly a tremendous amount of patience. I'm sure that's true.
We have zero luck with spirit photography.
It takes a lot of time in the field and a lot of photos. Mm-hmm. I think part of why I've had as much success as I have is that I take 3 photos of the exact same spot, because energy, as it can manifest, it can move, it can change, and when you catch something, having a photo without helps make what you've caught stronger. Mm-hmm. But I take a lot of photos. I think I finally broke my 50,000 mark.
Oh, really?
Oh, congratulations.
Yeah, in about 4.5 years.
50,000, wow.
That's a lot of clicking.
Yes, it does.
Now, standard, that's what, 1/300th of a second when you're taking a standard photo or something along those lines? I know it's extremely, extremely brief that you're capturing that moment in time.
It's as quickly as the camera will let me take the next photo. I don't use a burst, it's all an individual shot, whether I'm shooting in the daytime, which I do a lot of, or whether I'm shooting, needing a flash. Mm-hmm. And when you think about it, when you're shooting 3 at a time, they do add up pretty quickly.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, can you tell us what sort of inspired you to put the book together and when that came about?
At the beginning of 2009, I got serious with going out and taking photos, and to my amazement, I was catching quite a lot quite early on. And I just got, well, what do I do with these? I've caught all this great photos. How do I go and share these? How do I start telling about them? What do I do with them? So after a couple of years, I decided, let me go and start putting in stories and work on a book. And that came together. This came out last October. And it just kind of grew out of there. Learning how to put a book together and build stories around the photographs.
Mm-hmm.
Can we swing right into the photos?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I do have one question, however.
Sure.
A question that is frequently asked, do you prefer taking photos of apparitions or ghosts in the daytime or nighttime, or doesn't it make a difference?
Personally, I've had my most success in the daytime. I've caught stuff as early as 11:30 in the morning, mm-hmm. Outdoors in broad daylight. 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock tends to be another very good time for me. I've caught very, very little past midnight. Mm-hmm. I've probably only got a couple of shots like that.
So it's not written in stone that somebody has to pull in overnight to get great
absolutely
photography
not.
evidence, right?
Absolutely not. I recommend trying in the daytime. I think you'll be surprised, pleasantly surprised.
Our legend-tripping audience will be happy to hear
Right, I
that.
wanted to get that from an
Yes.
expert. See?
And you get a lot more opportunities that way, too.
Mm-hmm, true. Less chance of getting in trouble, too, or injuring
Yes.
yourself as well.
Yes.
Okay, well, go ahead, please.
Okay, just to kind of go and show you some of the more interesting ones. There's this great abandoned train tunnel up in Clinton, Massachusetts. And I like to go and have a full photo and then also crop in on what we're actually looking at. This is the end of the night, and we've finished, but the entire time I was there, I really felt something was there, something was watching us. And this is a completely empty tunnel that we're looking at. Here's a second shot. It blurred a little, but I tightened up on it anyway, and it's still obvious that there is something in there, and it's watching us, and it's making sure that we're leaving.
Do you know the history of the tunnel?
I don't know a lot of it. It's abandoned. It's in Clinton, Massachusetts. You can get permission to go there. And at one time they pulled out the trains. It's about 300 yards long. I don't know all the full history. I know that it went across a bridge across the reservoir at one point, but I'm not exactly sure when they pulled it out.
But the locals, I mean, there must be some reason that you started taking photos there. Maybe the locals, there are legends of
Actually,
haunting there. Or...
There was a paranormal group, the first one I ever worked with, that I learned a lot with. They had gone up there. I went along with them. And on my first trip, I caught these photos. I've been back, I think, 3 times since, and I've never caught anything again. But on that first trip, I certainly did.
First time's a charm.
It seems to be. I tend to have my best success on the first time. I've got some daytime shots. These are 3 photos taken about 11:30 in the morning in Gettysburg. And again, it was my first trip in. And these are fun because it's broad daylight, and it's a beautiful, clear spring morning. And there's this wonderful energy. And as she moves, because each one's a separate shot, and you can see how she changes, and as she manifests, and yes, I believe it's female. I just have that kind of a feeling. But there's direct sunlight on this. You can see along that pole, where you can go and see where you've got sunshine and where you've got, direct light.
You know, I experienced something almost just like that when we were down in Pennsylvania.
Altoona.
Well, we were staying in State College for the UNIVCON, right? At the what they call it was a bed and breakfast called the Yellow House.
Yes.
The sort of blobbish mass, I guess a Class C shadow person, you might call that. It looks almost exactly like what I saw.
How nice.
That's
Yeah,
interesting.
it's energy. It's hard to really know what to call some of these, but it's...
Now, Julie,
energy.
were you perceiving this at all while you were taking the picture?
I felt there was something up there. This is the second level balcony of some porches, and I just love porches. And I shot it extensively, and I did believe there was something or someone up there, and I'm busy talking to it. It's just me, and like you are visiting anyone, you try to be pleasant, how nice the place is. You just chat as you would with any guest or when you're a guest at someone's house. And I did have a feeling, and much to my surprise, I caught quite a few photos.
Now, does that happen with you often? Do you consider yourself maybe sensitive, at least in that aspect?
I
that
would say
sometimes
sensitive.
you feel something, and I have to take a shot right now.
I get a feeling when I'm out, if something gets my attention in the tiniest bit, I just shoot. I don't think about it, I just shoot. And sometimes it pays off. Sometimes I got plenty of shots where I thought there was something there and nothing happened. And sometimes I'm as surprised as anybody else that I caught something. But I do follow my instincts. I've learned to do that. To go through a couple more. Tenney Gatehouse, Methuen, Massachusetts.
Yes.
Oh, I love this place.
We've been there.
And this is some of the best photos that I've caught there. I like to go and show everything. Everything's in 3s. And while there's nothing going on in those first photos, I'm shooting down the stairs, something walks into my next photo. And I'm looking at this pink hat, and I'm just kind of thinking, what's up with that? There was nobody with a pink hat. And I like to go back and take a look again. You can really go and see how they're just there. And the body's got kind of its own weird translucency to it. But again, that's the second shot. So by the third one, this apparition has moved to the other side of the room. And this organ came into the building just 2 months before I took this photograph. It had belonged to a caretaker from Grey Court Castle, which burned down in the late 70s on the back of the property. And he'd passed away about 2 months prior. And my own belief is this is Mrs. Fanny Tenney, who had lived in the house. And she's recognizing it. She's running her hand. You can see the movement of a hand across the keyboard. So I believe she's recognizing it.
Oh.
Yes.
That is a fantastic shot. Wow.
Yeah. Took me a while to kind of wrap my brain around what I had. So.
That is an interesting location.
Oh, it's a
Keith
wonderful
and I
place.
did a presentation, Demonology 101 there, a few years ago, and we personally didn't experience anything, but the group that was there had...
Essex County Ghost Project.
In fact,
Hospital area.
I think that was part of we made that into one of our Ghosts R N.E.A.R shows. Some of the footage from that, some of the people that we were with, they had quite a few experiences. That night was hopping.
Well, I had quite a bit happen that night, too. I caught another series about an hour and a half later up on the second floor. I loved this green dress, but the window was the big surprise.
And this location is
Same place,
Same
same
place.
night, about an hour and a
Teddy
half. The
Greenhouse.
first photos
I took
were
some
around
footage of
6
that
p.m.
place, yeah.
And then the second set that I caught were about 7:30. But there's a man in the window, and we're on the second floor. And he's got his arm up in the first photo. Again, there's always 3. You've got a second photo, and his arm is down, and he's moved a little bit. And you can now see a ponytail. You can see the Y of his suspenders on his upper shoulders. Even the tab where the suspenders attach to the back of his pants, a nice clean line where the shirt and the pants come through, and the folds in the fabric. Now, there's also plexiglass over this. It's a historic building. They can't modify it, which is why you can go and see some of the shirt. You can see that on this side of the wooden frame. And then by my third photo, all he is a point of light. He's just pure spirit energy. And I love this shot because it's got rays coming off of it. It's emanating. It's got its own energy. That's pure spirit energy.
That's a question that we often get asked, and you probably do too, about the infamous orbs. You know, if there's anything to them.
I'm not a fan of orbs.
But I mean, if this is what you're looking for, if you know, if you're talking about a real energy spirit orb, you're looking for something like that that's emanating, that's solid. It's not translucent. It's got its own light
energy,
coming
its
from.
own
Giving
light.
off its own
Exactly.
light. Yeah, exactly.
It's got its own source.
And I think, you know, a lot of people, you know, at first glance, looking at the other photos of the apparition that you caught, might say, "Oh, well, it was somebody standing in front. It was somebody. It's the reflection of the dress, you know, on and on and on." But, or you know, it was somebody outside of the window. But again, like you said, it's 2 stories up.
Right, and there was no one there in period garb. Everybody was in regular clothes. It was a pretty packed house. They had about 60 people there that night for a fundraiser. And the room had been full. I always kind of stick toward the back of the group so I can photo as people have left. And that room was completely full 2 or 3 minutes before that. And it's just being in the right place, the right time quite often too.
Absolutely.
But I went back there. I thought, what a great opportunity. You've got a controlled environment. Let's go back and take some photos to compare. So I went back and had a friend of mine stand in that same spot. She's about 5'3", 5'4". And it turns out that there's quite a difference between her size and this apparition. You see that she's petite. If you look at the door handle, you can see a good reference point to go and see their height and such.
Right.
And I did the same thing over at the keyboard. I had her stand there. And then again, when you look at the apparition, you can go and see how small this person is, which also ties into why I believe it's Fanny Tenney, because she was only about 4'9" and
really?
very petite. And when you get back to why the pink hat, she was known to wear large hats because of her small stature, and her husband made all his money in a hat factory. So she would have had a big selection. So, and there are many mediums that have said that she is still there. So that's who we are theorizing that she is. But then we went upstairs. Now, the photos downstairs were taken with available light. That's why they've kind of got that orange cast. I don't turn my flash on until I absolutely have to. So these were taken with the flash. And it took me a while to go and move somebody around. I wanted to know, where would you have to be physically for your image to fall in this part of the window? So I moved a friend around multiple times because I really didn't know, is it in front? Is it some kind of an off-camera angle? And it turns out you have to be standing right in front of the window. But as I was saying, there's plexiglass in front of the window, and we made this wonderful discovery. She's got 2 reflections, which you can see because there's 2 reflective surfaces,
Yes.
but he only has 1. It's
Really?
only on the outer surface. He's 2-dimensional.
That's fascinating.
So
That's truly fascinating.
he's a real ghost.
Wonderful catch.
Yes, that was very exciting. We never expected anything like that, to go and look at that afterwards. So that was a wonderful surprise when you go back and
Makes it all
try and
worth it,
experiment.
doesn't
Oh
it,
my
when you
gosh,
get something like
even
that?
more so, yeah. When you go back and experiment and try something different.
Well, let's see some more. I'm finding this fascinating.
Well, let's go and see what else we can go and do for more. We kind of keep track of time and such. That was what I had originally had up. Now, it can be as simple as just catching mists and the like. And then they can go into different shapes. With this one, you've got a ball with a tail. I'm in Rutland, Massachusetts, on the grounds of what had been a tuberculosis hospital and prison farm. And this is one of my favorites, with that ball with the tail. And then you can get something like this, where it fills much of the screen with just a different kind of mist formation. There can just be quite a variety. Now, Barnstable, Massachusetts has this wonderful place. It's the oldest wooden jail in America. And I went there one time, and again, I've got a photo where nothing has happened in it, but then this really wonderful light anomaly, all these streaks. I've never caught anything like this photo anywhere else, but it just comes in from one side. And it's a great location. Only twice have I ever had something physically move on investigation, and here is one of the 2 places that something actually physically moved, which was absolutely fabulous. Lizzie Borden House,
recognize that
had
house,
a
yeah.
great time there. And this was one of my later catches and later in the night experiences too. Heard my first disembodied voice there, which was its own unique experience. But I'd caught a photo, and it turns out that this is in Mr. and Mrs. Borden's bedroom, and there's this great light anomaly on the bed. And when I took the photo, I had briefly seen the white spot, so I wanted to go and download my photos, and we took the picture. It turns out my card reader's upstairs in my room on the 3rd floor. We had just finished my group on the 3rd floor, so I go back upstairs to get it and come down. As I'm going up the stairs on the 3rd floor, it feels heavy, it doesn't feel good, I'm really, really uncomfortable, but I really, really want my card reader. So I'm thinking, okay, go in, get it, come down. There's kind of a little sitting area that's maybe 20 by 15 room before you go off to the different bedrooms. And I've gotten to the top of the landing, taken 1 or 2 steps in the direction of my room, and right behind me, in a man's voice, I hear, like someone is clearing their throat. And of course, I spun around and said, "Who's there?" And there was nobody there, and I was down those stairs so fast. I had never heard a disembodied voice. I'd had this really not good feeling, and this was directed at me. I had interrupted, or I was in somebody's space. And
I see.
so by the time I hit the 1st floor, there was a crowd waiting, because I must have made some noise coming down those stairs. And they came up and checked, and nobody was there. And oh, that was a great time. But there's just so many different places. Over the East Coast, I've had a lot of luck in Massachusetts. I've been up to Eastern State Penitentiary. That went really, really well. Actually had a capture with a motion detector camera. It's the only time that's actually worked for me.
I was actually going to ask you to describe some of the different cameras that you use.
I use a regular camera, my main camera. It's a Nikon P80, and it's about 3.5 years old. And it's set on automatic everything. I let it do the thinking. And that's what I have used. I'm not great with technology, so I like this simple camera. It's a little higher end. It has the eyepiece versus looking at the screen. I always use the eyepiece because I want to go and close everything out. I don't want any distractions. I want to be seeing exactly what the shot is. I don't want anything extra periphery that wouldn't necessarily be in the photo that can distract me.
Right.
And that's how I shoot. And it just kind of closes the world down. And I get better shots that way. That's how I like to do it. And that's what I recommend. You know, I just think it helps with your focus with what you're doing.
And you also used the motion?
I've put up motion detector trap cameras, and I haven't had too much success with that. I've really only caught something once, and that was down at Eastern State Penitentiary. I can switch out the flash on it, whether it's a infrared flash or whether it's a white flash. And this is the only time I caught something, and I put the white flash in because it was on a balcony where no one could walk in front, and I'm not going to, you know, blind anybody with that. And I discovered then that whatever triggers it on the first time, the flash doesn't go off, and then it does after. It's set to take four shots total, 15 seconds apart. And on this particular shot, the flash didn't go off, and it might have washed it out, but there's a shadow person in the back. You can kind of see a hat shape, and it's an area the guards would have been in. So we are believing that this is somebody still on duty, still watching down that corridor. But that's the only time I have.
That you're...
There's two photos. There's one I taken during the day because I really believed there was something up there, and then this photo is the one you can see the timestamp and such from it. But over on the lower left side, you can go and see a man's shadow. You can go and see a shape over there.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, yeah.
Very clear.
Yeah, and there were many shots when I showed you those three big ones in Gettysburg. There were many other ones, but those are by far the most remarkable of all of them. And just with any different places, and let's see where we end up next.
It's interesting when you're going fast like that, you can actually see the motion of it.
Well, just to kind of go and find something to go and highlight on. So Rolling Hills out in Bethany, New York. Great place there. Again, I've got a light anomaly that I've caught up at the top.
Right.
And I don't look for stuff when I'm shooting, but momentarily, sometimes you'll see that bright white spot or something will stand out. So in the next one I shot higher, I'm thinking, light fixture? There's nothing there.
Nope.
And then you can see the texture. I like to show again, what it looks like, the density, the shape, the soft edges that you go and get with a lot of these. But that night I also caught a shadow figure. So he's going to show up on the left in the third shot.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Looks like he's approaching.
Well, I'm the only one in the room. It's completely dark. My flash is the only light. But what I really love about this is that he is only on the wall. If this had been a real solid person, he's behind a stove, and he would be on the stove too if that was a real person. This place is very, very well known for their shadow people.
Yeah, and it's not, it's less like a blob and more like a silhouette.
Yes, you see a head and shoulders shape as he's just over on that edge and behind a stove of all places. But there's just many locations. The Tenney Gatehouse, Shanley Hotel, Napanoch, New York. That's a
Shanley,
wonderful
yes.
place and very
We've
active.
almost made it there. That's right.
Been up there
We've
3 or
been
4
invited.
times, and I think it was on my second trip that I finally caught something. But there's a little girl, Rosie. This is who we're theorizing this photo is of. She accidentally fell into a well and died right across the street. Her father had been the barber there. But the easiest way is to go and look at the 3 shots that are side by side. You've got a little blonde head here. There's a little bit of her still showing as she finishes going through the wall, and by the 3rd shot, nothing at all. And again, this was taken at 7 o'clock. The room is full behind me. You don't have to be in quiet and isolation to be able to catch stuff.
7 a.m.?
PM.
PM?
PM. We were waiting for the owners, for Sal, to come down and go and give us the tours. It's big, 35 rooms.
Right.
And just a great place to investigate. But there's so many different locations, or I love to shoot cemeteries just because I think they're cool. And I've actually caught a few things during the day. And again, I like to show these because you're going to see what the texture is like, the density. There's soft edges, and they can vary. This is up at Vale Cemetery up in New Hampshire, and then on a completely different day, I'm in Connecticut. And I just drove by this place, thought it's cool, I'm going back, and I caught something very similar. But not too many times has that happened, and only once have I caught something at night. There's these wonderful little blue lights and you can see them moving away from each other. This cemetery, Bethlehem, Connecticut, there are a lot of children in here that died of smallpox. And we're feeling that this is children still playing, still running around.
There are a lot of locations that we hear about with these blue lights. Lad School is one.
But it's the only time I've caught anything at night in a cemetery.
Some people actually refer to them as cemetery lights.
Really?
Yeah, because they have perceived them in cemeteries and whatever the explanation for them is. And there's another question I want to ask you.
Of course.
How about video? Do you do video?
No, I haven't done any video. That's something I would like to branch out into. Again, it's something I need to learn about. Like I said, I'm not that great with technology, but I would like to go and just expand and try to experiment with that also and see what happens.
But you have such luck with pictures.
Well, this
It
is
seems
why
like
I've
the
kind of
next
stayed
logical
with this.
step.
I really have, to the point that I went out and bought an identical camera to what I have as a backup.
Yeah.
Just in case, because I've had so much luck with this particular model. You want to try different things, but you kind of hate to get away from it, thinking, is
stick
this
with
part
what
of it?
works.
So yes, that's kind of what I've been doing. But I still would like to try video.
Now, have you, aside from what you explained to us in the boarding house with the gruff man's voice,
Yes.
have you ever been truly frightened while doing this? I mean, really, really, truly frightened, where you had to get out of the building?
I have had instances, yes. I've been in places where I have just been so uncomfortable and I have to leave an area where there's something around, there's something going on, something is encroaching on my personal space, and I have had to do that a few times. Absolutely.
Have you ever captured anything that might be anything akin to like a dimensional or maybe time displacements or anything? I've heard of people taking pictures of an empty lot and a hazy outline of a building appears where there was a building once.
No, I've never had that happen. At least not yet.
But not yet.
So,
There
no,
could be a
nothing
time.
I can claim to yet. But yeah, it does happen. I've seen a few photos that other people have caught like that.
Yeah.
So it is possible.
Now, Julie, what advice would you give for somebody who's just starting out in the paranormal field or just starting out with photography? What's a good piece of advice you'd give to them?
Find people to work with. Read all you can. Part of it is getting out with a group with experienced people to go and spend time out in the field. I do a lot on my own, but it's also nice to get out with people. But in the beginning, that was so valuable because I just didn't quite know where to start. I also didn't know what I'm looking for in the beginning. What I was thinking was a good capture was indeed dust orbs, and they had to go and start teaching me the difference, how to recognize what was, what wasn't, what the characteristics were. But you want to find someone that'll kind of help you along, and just spending time out and doing that, and take a lot of photos, and always take 3 of the exact same thing.
Good advice.
Sandra, do you have any final questions you'd like to wrap things up with?
Well, that was my that was my wrapping up question. The what does she advise, and that's good to know. The three photographs in succession and take an enormous amount of them, right? What did you say you're up to? 50,000?
I have finally broke 50,000. If I'm at a really great location, I'll try to do 100 shots an hour, which sound like a lot, but when you think you're taking them 3 at a time. But if I'm in a great location, I want every chance I possibly have.
Yeah, and I don't think people realize that a lot of the time, how many pictures you have to go through before you get these amazing catches.
Exactly, because most of the times it's about 1 in 1,000 photos, so that's a lot of time.
Yeah.
And just get out there and do it.
Well, Julie, will you come back and see us again?
Absolutely,
I
my
have a
pleasure.
Great finally having you on.
My
I have a lot of
pleasure, my
locations
pleasure.
in my mind I'd like to get you on.
Oh,
Believe me.
I am so
From-
there.
From Slater Mill to Ramtail.
I haven't been to any of those yet, so
We'll
we
get
will
you
have
there.
to talk.